All right, everybody, and welcome. It's that time of the week again, and I'm really excited for today's guest. Thanks for joining us for the Bear Analytics event webinar series. As always, if you're a returner, you know the rules. Ask questions in the chat, ask them in the actual dedicated questions box. We're going to take them as in near real time as possible, and really excited to welcome Marianne Pierce today. So for those of you, I'm Joe Colangelo, co-founder and CEO of Bear Analytics. And Marianne and I go back a number of years in the life science industry. And I'm going to let her introduce herself here in a second, but I'm going to tout her a little bit in case she doesn't want to do that. I'll do that for her. In my mind, one of the best kept secrets in events and in event tech. And there was a reason for that, but now you're going to be able to talk to us about it today, which I'm super excited about. So welcome, Marianne, CEO of Map Digital, the brains behind the Meta Meetings platform. See, I knew she wasn't going to let me talk about it like that. The brains behind the Meta Meetings platform. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to spend any time to speak with you. And we have been fellow travelers for very many years. I mean, you coming from bio, and I'm coming from a massive healthcare conference, which, as you're right, for the last 20+ years, we've had a legacy client, JP Morgan, who has entrusted us over the years to really run their investment banking conferences. And the biggest one we do is the healthcare conference, which happens every year in San Francisco. The last 2 years has been virtual. And it has, at this point, over 630 live sessions and 14 tracks with 10,000 attendees and 50,000 people on the web. And I think essentially we built our Meta Meetings platform over the last 20 years to be able to run this show, to be the only technical company, both doing the engineering, the IT, building local area networks, getting all the presentations, webcasting, doing the digital signage, the registration, and most importantly, being the agency of record, one platform for everyone to work with. So healthcare with 2,000 speakers, about 3,000 people are working on the Meta Meetings platform. Can you imagine the workflow and the lack of emails that are going back and forth, and the slides that are getting lost and things that are happening? So this, over the years, working, sitting at the table with a major enterprise and listening and trying to make the software do the heavy lifting, and making sure that, first of all, the attendees have the most unique experience, one log on, very ergonomic for their experience, that we gather all the assets, and that it is all integrated, so there's a show flow and a workflow that is very efficient. But most importantly, all of our data and all of our content is in one place. So now that we've entered into this Web 3.0, and we're calling it Events 3.0, that the pandemic has forced us into, I think this sort of integration became innovation, so this is where we are. So thank you. And the reason why, JP Morgan always keeps it very quiet who the vendors are, but since we became essential to them because they went from having events to going virtual, and we didn't cancel one conference. And also that we're in this space with innovation. They allow us, under certain circumstances, especially in Joe asks, that we can mention.
So, I mean, that's super impressive. There's not too many folks that weren't hit by the conference cancellation bug. So I want to just double click on that point real quick. And then you mentioned something, Web 3.0 to Events 3.0. You've sat down and actually published or about to publish, correct me if I'm wrong, the ebook on what Events 3.0 are. So for our audience today, help us unpack that. What is, in your mind, in your vision, what are Events 3.0?
Well, it is published. You can go to our website and you can download it. It's mapdigital.com. It's actually nothing new. It's just basically putting it all together. And I think it's with the learnings we had from virtual. Now, we have been virtual. We've been doing hybrid events, webcast events since 2000. All of the publicly traded companies had to be webcasted. Most people in the industry didn't have to do that. That was mandated by the Securities Exchange Commission for fair disclosure. So we were disrupted well before COVID happened. So when COVID happened, we were used to being up in the digital space. And as everything shut down, we looked at trends and we saw things that while we were still missing being on site, but there were other things that were assets or that could be utilized to even bring more growth and further revenue monetization to the industry. So we identified three trends, new trends, three discoveries, okay? And the first one is virtual brought us tremendous amounts of video because of the Zooms, and we would have our speakers go into a Zoom room and then we webcast them and put them on the MetaMains platform. So we wouldn't watch us on Zoom. Zoom is a vehicle to get the speaker, okay? And all this content, video, it was very expensive in the past, the setup in the back of the room, but now from the Zoom, what are you going to do with that video? Well, we believe that you put the content and make it optimized so it can be searchable, so it can be translated, okay, different languages. And then also, we have a company we're working with out of Ireland called Gist. It's a machine learning platform that we send that video and they spit out a 3-minute synopsis video in about an hour's time.
So what I'm hearing is just the ability to get more out of the content that you're already putting an enormous amount of energy into generating.
It's like looking at video as a vast asset now that it's digital and it's on the MetaMains platform. So there's an agency of record there. It's not in the back of the room on somebody's laptop who just took a plane ride, and you're not going to get that video for a long time. So as it moves through webcasting, it's going into a content optimization. You do speech to text search. This video, when you archive it, you can't search it. No one knows what's there. Okay, so that's an opportunity to make your video keep on working for you. And then, of course, if people are logging in on it, you know what they're searching for, you're getting more data points on them. And then this thought leadership, video on the web or using little snippets of your content, of your thought leadership, you can increase your audience exponentially, and your speakers have huge networks. We've done a lot of surveys and tests with that. So it's a way of getting people around your content for that digital campfire on social media and content fuel it. Those are the snippets. So to have a machine learning platform generate, a 3-minute video, that would take me 24 hours to do with my people, getting a transcript, highlighting it, getting it to the editor, and have them generate it with probably an hour later. It doesn't like that. So that gets into our third point is I could never build all this technology. I wouldn't live as long. But what I can do is look what MetaMeetings does and then interconnect with other rest of service platforms to create a workflow. So this interconnected platform is very
That's
important.
your concept of integration is innovation.
Correct. So I look at the best of service. I look at, there's a company that we work with the bank and with other financial services called Reconvene. And they set up the one-on-one meetings. The one-on-one meetings are very important. That's when the publicly traded company and the investor get together and then make the deal. Same thing one-on-one meetings and trade shows, very important. When you're making the one-on-one meetings, when the attendee logs into a MetaMains platform for a conference, their one-on-one schedules being pushed to them. They don't have to go to another login. So there it's like one login, one dashboard, all actions. And we consider MetaMains to be the agency of record. So when that video goes out there, we're webcasting it. We've already gathered the assets. The speakers upload the slides and everything's there on MetaMains. Then we're webcasting it. As it's going out, we're ringing the doorbell of the content optimization.
Sorry, Marianne. If you could maybe, it looks like some folks are having some trouble with your audio.
So sorry, I'll speak more closer. Okay. Anyway, so long story short is basically it's automation. So we send that video signal out to the AI machine, to the machine learning. And it's, I can never build those platforms, but I can facilitate my customers' use of the goodness that web can offer them.
So where do you think we are in this automation spectrum? Like, are we in, I'll use kind of the baseball analogy. Are we in the second inning? Or is this stuff that, you're like, no, we're almost to the end. We've almost got it figured out. The end of the game is almost near. I hear these this kind of discussion going back and forth all the time. You know, the pandemic was massively disruptive. The disruption created innovation. We're moving faster than ever. Do you think that there's still long legs on the innovation spectrum, or are we really about to kind of get it done here?
I think it's a great question, but I think it's not about the innovation. I think it's about human beings culturally absorbing what's in front of them. I think to really embrace that the cloud has landed on events, whether face to face or just virtual home, and use software and the interconnection of software. Many of your listeners are probably have 3 or 4 technology vendors out there that don't talk to one another, and they're uploading Excel spreadsheets and they're doing all this work. It should be interconnected. It all should be sat down. So I think it's not known to be elegant, but it can be elegant. It should be a workflow that is based on your key performance indicators as an organizer. And you should have your technology providers work for you, not that you work for them. So I think the question of that elegance and getting what you need. We also know that since I think, we had all this great data before, our banks and our clients didn't always look at the content usage data of the attendees because they thought their reality was their relationship going to the golf course was more important than me telling you, here's the data points of this potential client, and they're really interested in telecommunication stocks. I don't know him dealing with him, he's not. Well, his behavior said something else. When we had the pandemic and there was nothing but my data, all of a sudden people got very excited. And now it's a cultural leap because they didn't quite get it. But when everything was taken away and they saw it, they realized that there was some magic, not magic, let's say, that there was some good leads in which to mine from it. So I think it's more of a culturally sort of absorbing technology. The technology necessarily is not new. AI is not new, but making it work for you in your workflow is different. Having a stack, having an integrated stack, instead of going out to 5 different vendors and hoping to hodgepodge something together. I mean, many technology providers would love to talk to you about integration because they want to be successful if you're successful.
So let's distill down then, because I think you're making a number of good points. So the first is like content's getting supercharged. Is that a fair characterization, right? We're doing more with what we're creating. There's a dexterity that technology is helping us enable to give it a longer shelf life, extend the value. The longer shelf life and extension of value is now forming these communities around this content that can then, by the way, be distributed in and around events more easily. And then kind of the layer on top of it is this concept of the interconnection of platforms so that the data can really kind of almost like a feedback loop, right? The data can then go back to the beginning and say, how do we, but I think your last point, the layer across that is we weren't ready for it. And now folks are starting to become more pumped up about it, it sounds like.
Do you remember when you first had your first virtual meeting, you had all this content data, you never knew what people were watching in the sessions if they were downloading or asking questions. All of a sudden you had content data of attendees usage. You never had that before. You might have had it, but you didn't look at it. You were looking more at marketing data. You were looking more at, leads retrieval. You were looking at, people getting in the room. Now you have people that they actually clicked. So we've been in that space for a long time. So if somebody watches a live webcast, we give them 10 points. If they download the slides, we give them 8 points. So we start looking at that content usage and we marry it with the other data, and you get some pretty interesting, deep insights for targeting, creating content, as well. We call it leads to service, where you can kind of say to your exhibitors, here's people's behaviors, and they're aligned to you with what your service is, so maybe we should set up a meeting or something. I think that we didn't have it once we saw it. Also, I don't think we thought it was possible. The events industry in the technology side happened hodgepodge. This one came out with this, and this one came out with that. There were very few people who were saying to organizers or enterprises, like, can we just pull this all together? can we just make this into like a Salesforce? Salesforce started out, and Salesforce now does everything for you. So we can have a platform where we can all interconnect processes, because the bottom line is you have to move your product, you have to move your services, and that's what the trade shows, or whether you're an enterprise or a trade show, there has to be a transaction or sales happening. So how can you make it better? Why are you flipping? Software has to help you with that. So I think we're in a very unique situation because we sat with an enterprise at the table, and it was like basically we just kept answering their needs. So we have longevity. Not many people had that vantage point, and I know it's a unique vantage point.
Yeah, so that's an interesting. I mean, the whole concept of it seems like it should be so ingrained that it doesn't need to be said that the technology should be enabling. But I think your point is for too long, and I would love to, hear if this is something that you're like, yeah, spot on, or maybe we can disagree about this. Is it fair to say that the event tech stack has not really been in line with the enterprise or the organizers like regular business stack? It's kind of been off to the side. And now we're starting for the first time to see those things meaningfully integrate together in a way that is enabling.
I think it's because we should thank the pandemic, because first of all, there's two things that are happening. The technology providers were basically guessing on what the enterprise needs. I mean, Lawrence COVID many years ago, after Double Dutch demise, he says, we're building a platform that we wanted, not what the player wanted. They didn't have that seat at the table. And they were brilliant, but it was not answering their KPIs or their needs. And the second thing, when the pandemic happened, everything stopped. All other face-to-face, but the only that kept going was events and digital events. So events got really saved, a lot of companies, because the Zoom events or the meetings events continued the marketing. And then your client now is getting a little more sophisticated. And let's face it, also for a technology provider myself, there's not one person in the enterprise I talk to who handles events. It is fragmented, it's siloed, it's usually sitting with sales, like the sales of the healthcare sector. The enterprises need to think about this is a massive resource, your communications, your events, your content, your data, and then using something like their analytics to put all that data together to have real insights that we've never had before. We need to think about it not like, oh, it's this department and that P&L over here. We need to think about it as an enterprise solution. And that's starting to happen because I think, once again, behavior. The pandemic changed our behavior and how we looked at things. And we know our clients, the sales department never looked at our content data because they relied on their relationship. When they only had that, now they can't get enough of it.
I mean, it sounds like in addition to the actual technical integration component, though, there's this team culture integration that you're calling for here as well. Like, let's break down these departmental silos and cut through the fact that this is a multifaceted, multi-department, however you want to do it, initiative.
If you're looking at an enterprise, because that's my background. Okay, you have a conference. Let's say you have an emerging markets conference. You spend $2 million developing content. Let's just say, okay? 200 people in the room in the old days. That content is really good. You can capture it, but now you capture it. Yeah, you make it speech to text, you make it so it's multi-language, you do a snippet, you send it out there to your clients and then also to the web so that the world knows that certain bank is really moving forward on emerging markets. You've taken the spend, and for a little bit more money, you're adding extension to build more audience, and in case of the bank, more relevance to maybe even position people to become clients. So that's sales. So now we have it. So think of it in a longer tail. And think of it as, a market that's not just, where video, especially on the web, is the strongest asset anyone has in the marketing movements. But when you post a video on LinkedIn, it's ridiculous, the amounts of traction and use you get from it. Yeah, so this slide here is basically what meta meetings will capture. we're a content machine, okay? And so we know who watched what, who watched the webcast, who looked at the page view, who downloaded the slides, who sent, hey, this is a great conference, a great session, you should look at it. Polling, all of that stuff, and we kind of rate it. If someone watches a live webcast, we give them 10 points. If they download the slides, they get 8 points. That's arbitrary. It's just trying to get some sort of like mass.
I mean,
And so
it's you're setting the table with some kind of engagement score, and you got to start somewhere and benchmark the activity.
yeah, it's a token. That's what they do. This person's totally engaged. But
Mhm.
what are they totally engaged in? Now, if I'm trying to like sell a stock and talk to a sponsor or an exhibitor, I see that Mary Ann went to this conference and she watched the light blue is all page views. You can see it's weighted there. But she's into technology, emerging markets, energy, and high yield and ESG. Maybe we should sell her some of this the alternative energy from Brazil that uses wind. All of a sudden, we know exactly where to target me. That's my attendee report card, content usage report card. I send that into like all the marketing stuff, and all of a sudden you get a deeper, like sort of like I work in with my data cloud. You know exactly what I'm interested. It's like Google or Amazon. You know exactly what I'm interested. Now we have to talk about GDPR. We have to talk about privacy. The attendee has to opt in. If they opt in, and then do, and they get more privileges and curated, customized experience, I think you're going to be changing some of the experience there.
There is a social contract where I think people are more than willing to say, I'll give you a little bit of my information, not too much, not the stuff where I feel like I'm going to get spamified, but I will give you some usage, access to some usage behaviors if you can make my experience better. They get that in these social contracts with, these B2C companies. You think of like the content that they're consuming. It feels like that is maybe not a done deal, but pretty well established data commerce.
And if they do, and if they don't, if they opt out because they have the opportunity on our platform, it's really funny if they ask a question, we don't know who they are. Because as soon as you opt out, it's like blanked you. We know someone's asked a question, we don't know who you are. So I think it's basically what's the attendee using this conference for? Are they using it for knowledge and to make connections, merger and acquisition? Are they using it to curate their own experience, their business experience? Or do they just want to like sit back and be anonymous? I mean, I would want something to work for me. For me,
Yeah, no,
and
that's
customized
a
for
great
me.
point.
I've been going to IMAX and there's all these sessions and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know, like, if you had my data footprint, you could start suggesting to me what I should be interested for. It just means I have to spend more time with the engineer, that's all. But nevertheless, wouldn't that be great? If they could say, hey, Marianne, based on your previous usage, here's a little playlist there for you. You might want to consider these. Be great.
Yeah, you're right. Discovery is still kind of is a problem for a lot of events. Like they leave the onus on the human generated search engine where a lot of this can be, maybe a little bit more self-propelled.
Exactly right. And I think the interesting thing is that, there's no real reason except we have to get organized. Now we have to get into the data, how data is structured. When you have multiple platforms, people collect data differently and they also export data differently. And then Zoom is a big in our industry with VSEF, and BPA just bought them. Our friends over at Explora in London put this together, that virtual platforms have a standardized way of collecting data. Critically important, okay? Also, what we do when when we patch into other platforms, the attendee has the same unique ID when they're doing their one-on-one schedule, when they're on our Meta Meetings platform, when we push them maybe to a community website, they take that social security number with them so that we can actually track what they're doing and build the cloud around them. So it's not like, like we don't know if she's gone there. We need to clean up our data stack. As you know, Joe, you must be getting some data inputs from people that it's family name first, then it's Christian name, all of those type of things. So as an industry, we have to clean up our data stack, haven't we?
I mean, it took us the better part of a year and a half to find enough commonality across what different platforms were, collecting and how they were naming things. And I know now there's dedicated organizations to
Mhm.
qualifying what the tags are in event tech information. But we got about 5 minutes left, so let's just round out because I think this concept that you're introducing here is this idea of leads as a service. I want to touch on this a little bit because I think it's a big idea, and I want our users to hear your thoughts behind it.
Well, I think it comes from our point of view. See, our point of view is that we've been so content centric for so long, for over 20 years. I mean, I produced my first webcast in 1996. So this has been a long time. And I just know from having a direct marketing and communications background is that people click on something and they tell me what you want. So I'm looking at all this content data and there has to be a way to monetize that. So then I think wouldn't it be great if you just take that, once again, the attendees wallet or attendees cloud of their content ingesting and put it in with your other sales and marketing automation. And this is where something like there, data warehouse can get involved. And you can come to the organizer or to the sales team. Here's Marianne what she really is about. Maybe you should match her with other attendees so they can form a special interest group. We're getting that in the medical meetings. Doctors want to be matched with other doctors in the specialties. They just don't want to spend the time unless they're going to be doing science, getting faculty, or getting money, from the NDA or something, right? NHA or whatever. The same thing with trade shows. You have all my content uses. You know what I want to do. So you put it together and all that data, and then you match me to the sponsors who have the same data, who have the same meta footprint. I'm really interested in ESG and alternative energy. Well, let me set up a meeting with me with those exhibitors who are doing the wind or the solar farming. Don't waste my time. And you can, that's actually a source of revenue for the organizer. It's a one-on-one meeting, just set up.
So you laid this all out in the events 3.0 e-booklet. Apologies for earlier. It's already out. You can get it for free on the website. Go check it out, folks. We'll put it in the show notes on our YouTube channel. Marianne, thank you very much for your insights and thoughts today, for digging in deep. I'm glad we were able to talk about the bigger things and the leading things that you've been doing in the event space for the better part of the last 20 plus years. And just so folks know, again, I'll sing her praises because she won't do it for herself. Running the tech stack for the JP Morgan conference is like the equivalent of doing, CES in the healthcare industry. It starts off the year, it sets the tone for the year in healthcare, life science. It's a very big event. It overtakes San Francisco. And so kudos to you and your team for being able to do that, not just in normal times, but very unnormal times, and hopefully back to things that feel a little bit more stable in the future. So thanks very much, Marianne.
Back to San Francisco. We just can't wait. So we're hoping that we will be live from San Francisco.
Yeah, here's a good thought on that. Thanks also to our channel partners as well as our integration partners. The list is always growing. This slide's going to have another 4 or 5 names. So we're definitely taking the integration as innovation approach if you outlined it, Marianne. And thank you all for participating today. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.